Hey everyone, I've got Matuza with me. It is Matuza, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah, cool. um, and he just asked the question of what init with root view controller means.
Yeah,
So we're just doing a bit of an explanation. I'm going to just quickly share this on YouTube. But yeah, so what I was just saying is you can see that init with UI navigation controller has init with root view controller. UI window has init with frame. You've also seen init and new and all sorts of things. Um, so all these little init methods and like the different versions that there is, they're the different types of the different types of initializers for a certain class. So some classes in Objective C have multiple initializers. So it's a bit
right.
of a change from Ruby and some other languages. Um, so when you call new, it just calls alloc init. That's it. Um,
Okay.
but then if we want to set up a window and initialize it with a frame, instead of passing the frame to new, because Objective C style is sort of they want to name everything that's going to be passed along. Um,
All right.
we're saying initialize this, but give it this frame. And so the UI navigation controller is saying the same thing. We're initializing this UI navigation controller, and the root view controller, the very first controller that gets shown in the UI navigation controller, is going to be this one that
Mhm.
we pass along.
So, Jack, I understand that all these init with star kind of methods are basically just a way to initialize with some sort of an option being passed in. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what my question actually is I'm sort of having trouble figuring out where it all starts. Like we
Ah.
obviously it starts at the app delegate, right? Now the thing is, there's this UI navigation controller, there's this task list controller, all
Yep.
right, and task list controller, I'm sure it's a separate screen where you're probably going to be showing a list of tasks. Now, what do I mean when I say, UI navigation controller dot, initialize with the root view controller and take this controller as my root view controller? I mean, what I'm trying to, try to understand is with my Rails background, I know, when I create a new Rails app, my default, I have a, root route, it goes to some controller, maybe, home controller index action.
Yep.
I know it's not really logical to ask for an exact same logical parallel here, but if you could explain to me how, if there are any parallels, what exactly is root view controller, how the UI navigation controller, root view controller, task list controller all fit together and gel together. It would kind of help me move forward with how it all works.
Okay. Cool. So the first step is coming back from looking at controllers um, as sort of what they are in Rails, where they're this place where all the data goes, that gets called from the routes and sort of things go through there. It's more in the general sense of MVC, the general MVC, where
Mhm.
it's all it is to handle data communication between the model and the controller. Um,
Okay.
so for the UI navigation controller, because what a UI navigation controller basically does is manage a stack of view controllers, sort of like your sort of like a browser's history, where you've got sort of the very first one, the very first page that you visit in a tab, and then as you
Right.
click through things, the back button will appear. But if you but and so you can pop back to the other ones.
So basically, whenever I assign any controller as a UI navigation controller's root view controller,
Yep.
that's more or less going to be the start screen of my app. The screen with which that controller is tied to is more or less the start screen of my app. Is it something like that?
Basically, yeah. So you might not always use a UI navigation controller as the start part, um,
Okay.
but uh, what you um, what you're basically doing is init with root view controller is kind of like you open up a new tab, you paste in a URL, and that tasks controller is that first URL that you load in a tab.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's where your app will start off with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So in apps where we don't have a UI navigation controller, is it the UI tab bar controller?
Yeah, so
or, you know,
UI tab bar controller is another one that can manage like a couple of view controllers.
Right. So does that mean that your app needs to have either one of these two, UI navigation or UI tab bar controller?
It doesn't have to. You could just have that tasks controller as the root one. Basically, because UI navigation controller and UI tab bar controller inherit from UI view controller.
Okay.
So they're all UI view controllers. Any UI view controller can be this root view controller. It's just UI navigation controller and UI tab bar controller are a kind of container controller that manages multiple sub view controllers.
Right. So if you, I'll rephrase my question. So if you've got more than one controllers in your app, basically if you've got more than one screen in your app, then you need to have a container for those controllers.
Yeah, so a UI tab bar controller or a UI navigation controller.
So yeah, so basically if you have more than one screen, you need to have either a UI navigation controller or a tab bar controller.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. That clears up a lot.
Cool.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jack.
All good. All right. Yeah, so are you good with everything now?
Yeah, I'm still kind of stuck with the bridge parser issue. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm kind of keeping it in the background and going forward with static data and not hitting the API as of yet because that's anyway not ready. So
Yeah.
I'm not stopping my learning just because it's not ready yet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, did you end up going through the hang on, I'll actually stop recording and then we can have a little chat about that.
Sure.
All right. Bye everyone that's watching.